back. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you made it this far, kudos to you. Today we're going to be looking into Python if else statement. So Python has the conditional and if statements that you can use to test for certain conditions, then print up a result to the console if the condition is met or not. So Python supports logical conditions from mathematics, like we have the a equals to b. On line 1 here, we have the a is not equals to b. This is how you would use it in the Python code. We have the a is less than. We use the less than operator to indicate if the a or the b is lesser than the other. We have the less than or equal to. We have the a is less than or equal to b. We have the a is greater than b. We have the a is greater or equal to b. This is how you would denote it in your code. Okay, so now these conditions can be used in several ways. So most commonly in if statement and loops, you will find yourself using most of these methods to test for a certain condition or not in your code. Okay, so an if statement is written with the if keyword. Let me give you an example now so we can look into writing our own codes by ourselves. I'm going to remove this. So, okay, I want to test for a condition to see if A is greater than B and print a result to the console if that is the case. So I can create my variable like this, like you have seen before. Let's say A is equals to 30. Then we have B is equals to, for instance, 400. So I want to check to see if A is greater than B or vice versa. So I would say if use the if keyword, if A is greater than B, print something to the console. So print let's say if A is greater than B, right? So that if A is greater than B, print something to the console. What am I going to print to the console? B is, what's greater here? Okay, greater than A. So let's switch this so the code will work successfully. So let's go with B here instead of A to test for. Then I want our code to run successfully, so I want to switch the scenario. So I'm saying if B is greater than A, print B is greater than A. Okay, so what I should see in my console is B is greater than A because B is 400 and A is 300. I want it to run successfully, so I had to alter the condition there. So let's see in our console what is being printed to the screen. So voila, we have B is greater, oh typo, B is greater than A as expected in our console. So what are we doing here? So we're just basically writing a code to check if B is greater than A. But if you observe, I shifted this print into a new line, like 4 spaces. If you see I have 4 dots there, that's 4 spaces. So I did that because Python relies heavily on indentation. So you use indentation to define scope in your code. Other programming languages, they use curly braces, but in Python you use indentation. So if I was to push this backwards without indenting my code, I'm going to run into an error if I run it again on my screen. So I have what indentation error existed on indented block. That's on this line 5. So it's expecting me to indent my code so it can understand that this is the result that should be run if B is greater than A. Okay, so now okay, let's say we want to also check if A is equals to B or B or A is greater than A or another case scenario. So we have another thing available to us in Python, which is elif. So this is to check for another condition still in this code. So I would say elif. I want to check if A is equal to B. So I will go about using it in this manner. So I would say A with a double equal to sign here to test if these two values are the same thing. So let me see. What's going to give it to me to the screen is let's say how do you write our code to the screen? Let's say print. Okay, we're saying print A, something simple, is equal to B. So now this will run if A and B are equal. So let me try and make them equal. So I have that in my code instead. So I have A is equals to 400, B is equals to 400. So I should not be seeing this result to the console again. I should be seeing A is equals to B because I have made the condition so from the assigning of values to the variable. So let me clear up my screen here and run the code again. So I'm seeing A is equals to B. What's wrong with my typo today? I'm writing a very funny thing this evening. Okay, so I have A is equals to B here. So that's to say that, okay, else if is another way to check for two conditions in the same code. So I use the if that condition is not met, I have the else if available to me. So I also want to have a default. Okay, I want to have something that, okay, what if both scenarios are not met? What should happen in my code? I just don't want to test for A or B. What if nothing is correct? What should be printed to the console? So that's where we have the else keyword. We have the else keyword which catches anything that is caught by the preceding condition. So this else keyword shows me, okay, if A is not met or B is not met, that's the first condition is what I'm referring to A. That's if this condition is not met, and the L if condition is not met. Else will be what will happen as a default scenario. So I'm going to say, okay, else, we use the else without any condition. We just run it like this. Else print print A is greater than B. A is greater than B. Okay, so now this is going to be the worst case scenario or the default situation, as the case may be. Depends on how you're writing your code. So I want to test for, let me make this run. Okay, so now I want to test if B is greater than A, print this. Okay, or if A is equal to B, print this. Now the last case scenario should be that A is greater than B. Okay, so that's the last case scenario. So I want that to be my else. I don't need to test for that anymore. I want that to be my else. So you see, I have turned this else to be my last case scenario. Or the else can also be a default situation where, okay, both codes are not met, both conditions are not met. Then your else just prints a default code to the screen that, okay, hey, what you are testing for is not valid or something like that. So this is just we using manual values. We get to the point where we have to request values from the user and test to see if those conditions are met. So let me run this to the console, and you should be seeing A is greater than B. Come on, Dave, what's up? So I'm having spelling issues this evening for some reason. So this is how to test for the if, the else if, and the else. So in my code now, I have created for different scenarios. Okay, so in the code, I have checked to see if if B is greater than A or A is equals to B, and the last case scenario, which is what A is greater than B. So in this way, I have tested for the three scenarios. So what if I want to just run this on one line? We have something called the shorthand if in Python. You can have only one statement to execute, and you can put it on the same line as the if statement. So for the shorthand if, yeah, you don't have to write all this line of code if you want to test for only one condition. So let's comment this line out. Let's comment this line out, and let's see for the shorthand if. So if I want to check if A is greater than B, I can use the shorthand if, which will look like this. If A, this is how it's written, is greater than B, print A is greater than B. So making sure my spelling is correct here. Okay, so this is how you go with the shorthand if. Take note, this is a shorthand if. We also have the shorthand if else. So if I want to just check if A is greater than B on one line, I can go about writing it in this way. Then if I run my code, I should be seeing if A is greater than B. So I'm seeing what A is greater than B because yes, A is 400 and B is 40. So that condition would run successfully that A is greater than B. So we can also have the shorthand else. So for the shorthand else, the format is different. So how would we write that? We would write that with having to print a condition first. So we'll just change that to write print like this. Okay, then write print A. For instance, if A is greater than B, or we will print B. So how we're going to write that is we're just going to remove this part of the code. Then we'll replace it with else and print. Okay. So now this is the shorthand if else. So now, first of all, the action that should be executed, this is what we're having here. Then if A is greater than B, this is the action that should be executed. Else, print B. Okay, so this is what I want to run. If A is greater than B, print A, else print B. So if I run this on my console, I will see A here because obviously A is greater than B. So this is how you go about writing a shorthand if else in Python. Okay, so this technique is also known as ternary operators or conditional operators. So you can have multiple else statements on the same line, just like the way we did it like this. So if I want to add another if else statement on the same line, I can just add another condition here and say if what should we test for again? Let's just say if a is equals to, let's space it out for readability purpose, then we should print if a is equals to b, else, okay, print, let's write this one here. Okay, I just want to copy and paste from my previous code. So okay, we have print a, this is the first condition, else equal to if a is equals to b. So let's run this on the console so you understand how to use multiple if else statements with 3 conditions. Okay, so let's clear this up and let's run it. So I still have a because a is greater than b. So what's this code saying here? I'm saying if a is greater than b, print a. This is the first line I have here. Okay, else print. Now let's change the condition to have this considered. Let's run the next line instead. So let's run this and see. So I'm saying equal to. Do you understand? So now I'm saying print a if a is greater than b, else print equal to if they are the same. So if a is equal to b, else print b. So let's tweak it again. Let's change the answer here to have a different result, and let's run it again. I'm seeing b instead because now b is greater than a. So I was able to test for these 3 conditions like I tested for them here on this single line here. Okay, so this is how you can use shorthand if else statements to test for different conditions of your code. So now we have other keywords we can look into. So let's say we want to compare 2 logics together. I want to check for if a is greater than b and c is greater than a. So how will I go about that? I will use the AND keyword. The AND keyword allows me to test for 2 conditions left and right. So now these conditions have to be correct before I can have a result on the console. So let me clear this up. So now I want to test for if a is equals to 200 and b is equals to 33, c is equals to 50. So I want to test for if a is greater than b and c is greater than a. So for this code to run successfully, a and b must be met and c and a must be met. I must have true here and I must have true here. So true and true will make this condition work. So in my code now, I already have a to be 200 and b to be 33. And in the other side, I have c to be 500. So now a must be greater than b and c must be greater than a. So a is 500 here. And let's see, is 500 greater than a? Yes. What about a greater than b? 200 greater than 3? Yes. So I should be expecting both conditions are true in my console. Let's run and see. Voila, I have both conditions are true here because I have tested for both conditions and they are true. But what if I want to check for only one of them? I don't want both of them to be true. I can just come in here and change this to or. So we have the and or keyword in Python. So now for the and, both conditions must be true. But for the or, one has to be true before the condition can run. So they don't both have to be true. So let's say, okay, at least we'll just change the result to say here, at least one condition of this is true. So you can understand the result. At least one condition is true. Okay, now I want to test to see if A is greater than B or C is greater than A. So they don't both have to be true for it to work. Okay, so let's run this in the console and see. I have at least one condition is true. For the or keyword, one of them has to be true, but for the and, both of them have to be true. So take note of that. So now let's look at another keyword we have in Python, which is the not. So how we go about using the not? The not is just like a reverse, okay? The not is used to reverse the result of your conditional statement. So it's going to look like this. If you're about to use the not in your code, now clear this up. So let's see this. Let's clear our console and see what's happening here. When we run this, now are you seeing what we're having in the screen now? A is not greater than B. So we're reversing the case. So I'm saying if not A greater than B. That's A is 33 and B is 200. So I'm saying if this is not the case, that is when you can print A is not greater than B. So let me remove the not and you see something here. Let's save it and run. I'm having an empty result because why? A is not greater than B. So how do we test to see if that is not true? That's why we now use the not keyword to test to see that A is not greater than B. So if you want to reverse the condition of your code, you use the not keyword. So we can still have nested if. That means we have an if inside an if statement. So that's what we call nested if in Python. So how does nested if in Python look like? It's going to just have a bunch of if statements inside another if statement like this. So look at this code here now. On line 1, we are declaring x is equals to 41. And now we're testing to see if x is greater than 10. We print above 10. Then we check to see again if x is greater than 20. We print above 20. Else we print not above 20. So a nested if statement is an if statement inside an if statement. Then it can be called a nested if. So for you to be having a nested if statement, you just need to embed an if statement inside another if statement, and also remember to indent. So my code understands that this is a nested if statement because I have nested this, I have indented this line 5 in my code. Okay, so for me to be able to nest, I always have to rely on indentation. Python understands that you are nesting once you indent this properly in the parent if. So this is the parent if on line 3 here. Then this is the nested if. So if I run this code, I should be seeing above 10 and also above 20 because both conditions are met here. So I'm testing to see if x is greater than 10 here and if x is greater than 20, and yes, x is greater than 10 and 20. That's why I'm having these two results here. But if I should put, let me make this code give me a different answer. Let me run it. I think I'm having an empty result. I'm having an empty result here. Let me clear it up so you could see what's happening. Let's run it again. It comes up empty because now x is 4. 4 is not greater than 10. 4 is not greater than 20. And this, once the condition is not met, it breaks out of the loop and gives you nothing because I did not test to see any default statement. I can just write a default statement there and it will show me a default statement that, okay, that x is not greater than 10, x is not greater than 20. But no, I didn't put that. So that's why I'm having an empty result. So let's say, for instance, you have a code and you just don't want to, you have an if statement, but you don't want any action to occur. Because in Python, you must have a function inside, you must have an action inside your statement. Sorry about that. So now see my line here, I'm having an error because why? I cannot have an empty if statement, but for some reason you want to have an empty if statement and just like continue your work and come back to it much later. So by default, you already know that Python statement cannot be empty. But if by some reason, like I said before, you want to have this to execute without giving you an error, you can use something called the pass keyword. So this pass keyword allows you to just like declare this if statement without any action and it runs successfully. So when I run my code, I have no results because I just declared my condition here without an action. But if I remove this and I save it and I attempt to run it, I'm going to have an error. Indentation error, expected an indented block. That's the error I'm having. So Python requires you to put an action inside your if statement, but for some reason, like I said before, you don't want to do that. Just put the pass here. Okay, so basically that's it for if statements. You don't really have much to do with if statements. You only have to know if else, and else if you have two conditions to test for, then how to write it in a shorthand, then basically how to ignore some errors and whatnot in if statements. So that's what we have for if statements today. Next, we're going to be looking at while loops and for loops. So you need to see how we can loop through sequences in Python and have a result, and what loop is preferable to use in a different scenario, if it's the while loop or the for loop. That's it, guys. See you in the next class.